Hello and welcome to the Gaggle, where we challenge and, if necessary, destroy media narratives. I'm George Szamuely. With me today, of course, is co-founder of the Gaggle, Peter Lavelle, host also of RT's talk show Crosstalk. Well, to our non-American audience, the name Joe Scarborough may mean very little. He is the host of a very early morning show, and he has been around for many, many, many years. Some of us of an older generation remember him as a fire-breathing Gingrichite in the 90s. He was the guy who, people like him, were attacking Newt Gingrich for selling out to Bill Clinton, and they were constantly threatening rebellion against Gingrich. Then there were some, strange events that took place in his office in Florida. A young woman died under odd circumstances, and he left politics and then became a media star. And he had a show called Scarborough Country. In those days, MSNBC was on the right. It was owned by General Electric, and General Electric was run by Jack Welch. Again, people of an older generation remember Jack Welch was famous for firing people by the 10,000. He loved laying people off, and then business magazines would write about him, what a brilliant genius he was. He's turned this company around because he fired people. But in those days, there were many people on MSNBC who were certainly on the right, like Pat Buchanan used to be a contributor on MSNBC, Ann Coulter, and Joe Scarborough had his own show, Scarborough Country. Again, pretty solidly conservative position. And then, he was, during the 2016 election, for at least quite a substantial portion of it, he was in the Donald Trump camp. Trump would regularly phone in just after 6 a.m.
Ratings.
Exactly.
Ratings.
Exactly. And, they would be going, you'd get quite friendly interviews with Joe and Mika, his co-host, now his wife. And right up until the end, even after Trump had won the election, Joe and Mika were constantly trying to wangle invitations to Mar-a-Lago and New Year's Eve parties, Christmas parties, and whatever. But then Scarborough completely transformed himself and suddenly became this, again, fire-breathing liberal, denouncing Trump in, the most ferocious, personal, nasty terms. And this has really been going on since early 2017. So it's been 4 years. Has been doing this. And again, probably has something to do with the ownership of MSNBC. It's not General Electric anymore, it's Comcast. Scarborough is nothing if not, very aware of which way the winds are blowing. So in this long preamble, is just to say that he, the other day, had this extraordinary presentation on MSNBC in which he bizarrely declared that the media had actually done a very good job on RussiaGate. They got most of it right, he says. We got most of it right. And he not only did they get most of it right, he said that those, I'll quote here, "I'm amused," he says, "by so-called reporters who, I don't know if they're useful idiots for Russia or if they're on Russia's payroll, but there are some gifted writers who spend all night and all day trying to dig through, looking for instances where the press screwed up on Russia stories." And so he says, if you look at the totality of it all, the totality of everything, I mean, yeah, the media screwed up at some points and sometimes screwed up badly, but more often than not, they got it right. It's just an amazing.
How do you react to that?
One hardly needs to list all of the items where they got it wrong. I mean, the list is just, we'll be here for the next few hours. What's kind of interesting about this is that MSNBC and Scarborough and Maddow, the Democratic Party, are still clinging to the RussiaGate story. They will not let it go, and they will go on banging that drum until it becomes an officially accepted truth, even though there's no evidence for it, that Russia stole the 2016 election, that Donald Trump was working with the Kremlin, and that Putin engineered the whole thing. No evidence for it, but just by dint of repetition, people just accept it. And that's what Scarborough is in the business of doing.
They stick to it, number one, because they don't want to admit they were wrong. Okay. Right. The professional managerial class strikes again. Okay. But they can never accept that Donald Trump was legitimately elected president of the United States. They will never accept that. That's why they have to cling on to this conspiracy. All right. So that explains that. The interesting thing, I call it Morning Joke and Meager. That's my name for Morning Joe.
Right.
It's a really pathetic program. Its ratings are very, very poor.
I actually prefer Mark Levin. I think he could characterize it as Morning Schmo. I think Schmo is even better than joke.
And the interesting thing is that Matt Taibbi responded.
Right. And
it was very interesting. What Scarborough is actually referring to Matt Taibbi, Glenn Greenwald, Aaron Mate, I think not in written form, but Jimmy Dore. He should have been thinking about us too, because from the get-go, you predating the gaggle you were on many times on Crosstalk, and we debunked this from day one. And I'm proud of our coverage of this. Okay, we didn't get anything wrong.
No.
Not anything.
We just applied common sense. Common sense. That's not how the Russians behave, and there's just no evidence that Trump was ever interested in any kind of a backhanded deal with the Russians. It was just, it defied common sense that this could have happened.
Russians wouldn't get in bed with someone that's bankrupted himself 7 times or something like that. I don't know.
Yeah.
But I mean, the interesting thing is that nothing has been learned, not at all. They cannot concede that the media got it wrong, because the media is what they think is looking for the truth. They're a defender of the people, but they're actually a defender of their ideology and their position in society. Okay, it's really interesting. It predates Trump, but it actually solidified during Trump. Is that media as celebrity figure? Okay, these people are not particularly bright. I can't think of one of them actually. No. It's all about style and who can be the more of the resistor. Okay. That was the challenge for these people. Right. Who could go down the rabbit hole the most? Okay, and Joe Scarborough was one of them. Rachel Maddow was a peer, an honorable peer of Joe Scarborough. Okay, right. So I mean, I'm really glad you gave your long preamble, because he's a pure opportunist. That's all he is.
Yeah. I mean, that's why you really have to sort of go back and when we first became aware of Scarborough. Back when, furiously, this wasn't a child. He was already a mature person when he was denouncing Newt Gingrich, of all people, of being a sellout. He's selling out Republican principles to Bill Clinton. And while he's now, posing as this, left-wing firebrand. I mean, it's like a complete joke.
If the few times that I've actually watched it, I don't think I've ever watched an entire episode of his program. Would be rather pointless. But the few times that I've actually watched it, and it was during the early days of the hoax, there was something that struck me as very, very odd. So he's on. Sometimes he has a little spat with his then girlfriend, now wife, and who knows how it was scripted, I don't know. Right. But what was interesting is that they always had a panel, and they would just be doing this. And it's very much akin to during a period of the Soviet Union. You had these citizen judges. So you would have an official judge, and then you'd have citizen judges, and you had a robe on them and everything. Of course, they don't know anything about the law, and so whatever the judge said, they would be like, "That's right, that's right." They wouldn't say anything, okay? But it showed consensus, okay? And this Johnny Deutsch, I think, is one.
Donnie Deutsch, yeah, Donnie Deutsch.
Donnie, I mean, well, that's
it's very funny what you say.
That's a human rights violation.
Because there's a great story by P.G. Woodhouse, because he spent some time in Hollywood, and he wrote some very funny stories about Hollywood. And there was a person there who had a job as a nodder. And said, what does a nodder do? Well, I just sit in the corner and I nod. I never say anything. I just nod. That is my job. So when the big shot producer is talking, I nod. Somebody else says something, brilliant, somebody else laughs at his jokes. My job is strictly to nod. So
and that's exactly
that characterizes these sidekicks.
But see, what the interesting thing is that Joe Scarborough, he's only speaking to his clique. That's who he's talking to, okay? Right. Because he doesn't care what anybody outside of his circle thinks whatsoever. It's of no concern to him whatsoever. And so he won't admit he's wrong. He can't admit that Donald Trump was legitimately elected. And Joe Biden, by definition, can't do anything wrong because he isn't Donald Trump. I mean, their logic is really kind of infantile here, right. and it's a disgrace. There's no self-reflection whatsoever. How people like Joe Scarborough destroyed journalism.
That's right. And of course, last week when we had that embarrassment of a press conference by President Biden, there was Joe Scarborough the very next day to tell us that it was an absolutely brilliant performance. Biden hit it out of the ballpark, much better, much more substantive, much more on the ball than Donald Trump ever was. I mean, absolute nonsense. But in a way, it's quite important because he gets the story out. He's on there 6 a.m, so he gets the story out, and then the rest of the media, maybe it's right, maybe it was a good performance, maybe it was substantive. I mean, that's his job. I mean, it's like you've got to set the agenda at 6 a.m. with absolute rubbish. Everyone could watch it the night before and saw that this was an embarrassment of a performance, and suddenly it's transformed into a fine display by a president who's on the ball.
But we have to point out for our non-American viewers here is that American cable television is very much ghettoized. I mean, people that tune into MSNBC are true believers in many ways, like Fox, okay? I mean, what they want is they're not interested in information, they're interested in confirmation of their views. So, and Joe is very good at that. I give him that, okay? He's a good propagandist for his bubble world.
And he has these, as you said, I mean, he has these sidekicks. I mean, Donny Deutsch is one of those sidekicks. Another sidekick is one of the stupidest men who has ever graced politics in America, Howard Dean of Vermont. Absolutely total buffoon. I mean, as soon as he starts talking, it's just funny how he is. And so, and then we. That the guy from the Washington Post is a regular there. He's the one who somehow broke the Michael Flynn story. I mean, name is a famous foreign policy writer.
Peter Baker?
No, no, he's in the Washington Post. Yeah, I think Peter Baker is another one who appears there.
He's a hack, big time.
No, they're all hacks. But I guess they want to appear. You think it's quite hard work to get up that early and to be on, but it has quite big audience, and there's a certain prestige in being on that show.
For a very niche audience, okay? Yeah. You see, but what he's doing, these people that go on, they're just polishing up their credentials. They're credentialing themselves in front of their audience, okay? And Joe Scarborough is some kind of crown prince, believe it or not, okay? And so he anoints these people. Oh, it's well worth it to get up at 4:30 in the morning to appear on that program. It's well worth it for your career. Absolutely, okay? Right. And of course, this cult of being the professional look what they've done to the country, Georgia. They've driven into the ground these professionals.
Right. That's right. But that's it. But that's what's so fascinating. He comes along. He makes this statement. And so, first of all, say these people, they're either useful idiots of the Kremlin or they're on the Kremlin payroll. I mean, luckily he didn't, luckily for him, he didn't mention any names because that could have been rather embarrassing. I mean,
defamation.
Yeah, Aaron Mate, these are on the Kremlin payroll. I mean, he just says, oh, well, all these reporters who sort of made a career from them. But it's very interesting that he's doing it now. because it's so crucial for them to maintain that story. They have to go on demonizing Trump and undermining that 2016 election. You thought, okay, it's over now, new administration, but no, they still have to attack that 2016 election.
They haven't had the trial for January 6th. For goodness sake, they need this.
Right. Yes.
And I could just imagine it, George. Some, what's the lunatics guy that's doing the review for Nancy Pelosi? Honore or
Honore, yes, loony guy is like the right character.
That person commanded people. Right. What'll happen is there'll be like another Mueller report. Well, it is inconclusive, but a reasonable person could draw the conclusion that fill in the blank. Okay.
That's right.
That somehow, some way, these devious Russians are behind it, and it got away again.
That's it.
We're vigilant.
No question. They will point the finger at Russia because, of course, when Scarborough says, well, most of it they got it right. The only basis for him to say that is because of assertions by Mueller in his report or Brennan, who just simply declare, oh, Russia intervened in the election, they interfered, and then when you ask for evidence, sorry, highly classified. But every single story that the media ran with was wrong. Every single one. They all got every single thing wrong. I mean, when you go through the list of, it's an embarrassment. So for Scarborough to say, well, by and large, the media did a fine job, it's nonsense. But luckily for Scarborough, you have people like Brennan and then Mueller who just make these completely unsubstantiated assertions. Russia interfered in the election, but no evidence forthcoming.
Yes, and the people that lied about it, people in power and out of power, that are people of influence. At this point in time, at least in America, you cannot be charged with perjury on TV. But if you could, all of them perjured themselves. Right. Okay, because when they got under oath, well, it wasn't exactly that. I never really said that, and that wasn't what I was inferring, and blah, 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 blah. Okay, because when push came to shove, when you're under oath, you are under oath. I'd like to remind you, you're under oath. Exactly. Then the story was completely different and nothing to connect, okay? But your point is so well taken and so important. That has a lot of uses, okay? They will continue to use this hoax to, what they want to do is it's a dragnet. They want to make it larger and larger to be able to scoop up more and more people, okay? And what they're doing is trying to, on a major scale, I mean, this is breathtaking, the disenfranchisement of tens of millions of people. Yeah. That's their ultimate game is.
That's right, that's it, yeah.
And HR 1 is the cherry on top.
Yes, exactly right. And you remember when CNN, sent a reporter to harass some elderly woman who had, taken out of sort of, a Facebook ad, which, CNN claimed was really, there was some Russian organization behind this. Again, who the hell knows? It could some hacker, could well be some hacker in Russia who's trying to make a few bucks, which is probably what goes on. With these, you make money on the internet, so that's it. So, but they go accosting this unfortunate elderly woman with this kind of nonsense. But the extraordinary thing is like what you said, that when they were under oath, every single one of these RussiaGaters very quickly backed away. And so like Evelyn Farkas, who was peddling this total nonsense. We know this. We have absolutely indisputable evidence of what Russia.
And in the last days of the administration, we lowered the declassification, so more and more we could collect it on the Hill.
And then when she's asked, she's asked, what did you know? Well, I didn't really know anything. I mean, what I read in the papers. So when you said that you know something, well, I didn't really know. I mean, it's just what was in the papers. But what was in the papers was just simply repetition.
Everybody knows.
Like you were saying.
Everybody knows, George. Everybody knows.
Right.
That's what that whole. You know what I'm worried about? Let me tell you. this investigation of January 6th, what I'm worried about, these people overwhelmingly are poor, overwhelmingly have financial problems.
Yep.
Some of them have worse problems than financial problems.
Right, right.
I'm worried there's going to be a lot of pressure to make people not only sing, but compose.
No question. I mean, they're already hinting at this because it's clear they don't have a case. I mean, the prosecutors will keep asking for continuances because they don't have a case. So they're going to terrify these poor people who cannot afford counsel. Hey, plead guilty to this, say, somebody or other you heard, that they're going to have an onslaught onto Capitol Hill. Yeah, and then you're good to go. That's what they do. So far, this hasn't happened, but I don't know whether that's how long they can maintain that. And speaking of that, which is a very what you said,
Glenn
Greenwald wrote a very interesting column about this yesterday. How exactly how USA Today proudly sought to get these various defendants kicked off these various crowdfunding platforms, and but for no reason other than, well, these are the enemy, and so they don't deserve proper counsel. So these are poor people. They can't afford lawyers. They can't afford to get these high-priced lawyers. So what else can they do other than crowdfunding? And so here's USA Today, this big scoop. Let's kick these people off these platforms, and they succeeded. I mean, they have been kicked off.
Some of the most privileged people go and victimize some of the most unfortunate. They're so proud of themselves, aren't they, George?
Yes.
So proud.
Yeah, exactly.
That they want to. First of all, freedom of expression is forbidden.
Yep.
The attempting to defend yourself is forbidden.
Right.
Wow, this is what this liberal class believes in, doesn't it?
Yeah. No, that's exactly right. Exactly. It's a major transformation from the sort of the kind of the civil liberties lawyers from, say, the 1960s, these like Howard Kunstler types who would go in and defend indigent defendants. No, here get these journalists. Hey, how can we screw these poor people more? How can we make sure that they don't have access to proper counsel? And that's your newspaper scoop. And these journalists were proud of what they had done.
You're right. During the civil rights movement, it was brave to defend people. Right. It was brave.
Right.
Okay. Right. And we're all better as a result, and we've lost all of that. I'll say it. I'm not afraid of it. These people are the enemy of freedoms. Okay. Yeah. They hate people. What they want to do is they want to disenfranchise anyone that doesn't think like they do, because they're an existential threat, and they must be vanquished. That's right. What they want. That's it. Their mindset.
That's it. Because these people are facing extremely grave charges. They've got the weight of the DOJ. I mean, the DOJ has thrown everything at this. I mean, they're devoting all their resources. I don't think the DOJ is doing anything other than focusing on this January the 6th conspiracy. So these poor people have the whole weight of the federal government, the mightiest government in the world. The whole weight of this government is being thrown at them, and you're trying to stop them from having any access to proper counsel. It's just. Ugh. I mean, it's quite nauseating that this is what our journalists have now come to.
Show me the man, and I will find. Show me the man, and I'll find the crime.
That's it. That's it. Oh well, we will. We will maintain our laser-like focus on our media. Probably not on Joe Scarborough, but on the media in general. We are on Rumble. Look us up on Rumble. And remember, if you like the gaggle, please like, share, and subscribe. See you soon. Bye.